Hello and welcome to Knitting on the Float. My name is Tracy and I'm your host. I am coming to you from a gray rainy day in the Vancouver area. And honestly, what better time is there to share beautiful things than a gray rainy day? So I am taking it as a win. I hope that you have had a wonderful week wherever you are and that you are ready to sit down and enjoy some knitting and sewing this week. I got up to more than just knitting, so I am very, very excited to share with you what is on my right. But before I do that, let me tell you where you can find me. I am Tracy RR on Ravelry, and I am at Knitting on the Float on Instagram. If you're new to the podcast, welcome. This is a podcast which most of the time I focus on knitting, but every once in a while some other crafts jump in there as well. And this week, another craft has jumped in, or hopped in maybe, because we are approaching Easter. So I am very, very happy to have you join us and extend a huge heartfelt welcome. And if you are a returning viewer, welcome back. You know I am always so happy to have you visit with me. And I know you have your requisite cup of hot, cold libation, whatever it is, and you are ready to take that time for yourself, which is a very, very important thing to do. And you are ready to work on your favorite project right now. Well, I share with you what I have been up to. It is now time for tea time, and this week I am drinking out of my lovely Good Hair Day mug. And of course, Easter's coming, so a perfectly themed mug. I almost forgot that I wanted to bring some extra treats today, so I had to pop up before starting tea time. I think today we need a little bit of chocolate with our tea because we're coming up on Easter, and who does not love a Cadbury mini egg? These are the ones that we have in Canada. I don't know whether the US has the unspeckled ones too, but our Cadbury Easter cream egg, not Easter cream eggs, those are completely different, and oh, I love those, but our Cadbury mini eggs are completely unspeckled. I know it's a tragedy, but they still are delicious candy-coated shells of chocolate. So for today, some lovely chocolates, even Scout is joining us for a cheer, a little ahead of schedule, but our lovely biscuit tea, and you may not have chocolate puppy. You just may not. You may come up if you want, but you may not have chocolate. Anyway, for today's cheer, let us cheer to lovely treats and a happy long spring weekend. Cheers to that. Before we do that, a little bit of chocolate. I'm going to do things a little bit differently this week. I'm going to start off with brown paper packages because this week I purchased something, and for the most part, I used it all up, and it will feature in my favorite things. So we're going to start off with things that came into the house this week. And one of the first things that came in was a gift from a lovely lady that I know, and she was passing along one of her knitting magazines. She enjoys knitting as well and enjoys seeing what I've been up to when I see her, and she passed along this Berta knitting magazine. And I think my favorite pattern is really quite a simple one, and it is a blanket, and I'll just pop my glasses on because I liked what it had to say. And it just says, a soft touch, and just a beautiful, huge blanket. Snuggle down in this lovely blanket, soft to the touch and warm as toast. It is made in a cozy blend of mohair and wool. Who doesn't love that? The pretty mix of pastel shades is simply adorable. The blanket is knitted in stocking stitch. It is incredibly easy to knit, although you shouldn't be fooled into thinking that a project of these dimensions doesn't take time. It does. I loved the fact that it was calling a spade a spade. Beautiful, beautiful blanket. And yes, it will definitely take time. Now, I think this was, I want to say the May issue of Burden Knitting. It's number 10, 2022. So I think it was last May's issue. I'm not sure where I saw that, although it says winter warmers. So maybe it was, because I mean, it's all sweaters and blankets. So it's just the pastel colors fooled me into thinking it was spring. Anyway, this is issue number 10, Burden magazine, and this was gifted to me. So I've taken a look through, and as I said, I like the blanket. Simple stocking stitch. We'll see if there's something that I end up making from that magazine. Other things that came into my house, I did a little bit of shopping, but I had a plan in mind, and it involved going to Michael's and the dollar store. And when I went to Michael's, I bought some fabric, and I pre-recorded when I was just about to cut up my fabric and I was sharing it. So I'm going to put that little snippet right here. Happy Monday, April 3rd. I am in the kitchen, and I have purchased something for brown paper packages this week that I wanted to share with you before I cut into it. So in front of me on the island is my cutting board, my cutting mat, self-healing, and I have some fun fabrics that I purchased yesterday that I'm going to make into bunny bags, and I had to share them with you before I cut them. So let's turn the camera around and take a look. I bought some fun fabrics from Michael's, and I tried to match them up as best as I could. I thought this unicorn pattern was so sweet, and I really liked how it went with the pink polka dots. Now, each of these little things of fabric is 18 inches by 21 inches, which means I can make 3 bunnies out of each. So I can do 2 outsides and 1 outside with this one. So 2 outsides with the unicorns, 1 outside with the polka dot, and that'll be a fun pairing. I also got this rainbow, and I thought it looked really nice with this turquoise. So that was one. This beautiful purple with these polka dots. And of course, the polka dots would go really nicely with the unicorns or the rainbows. But I actually like the idea of doing something a little bit fun with a solid. I didn't stop there. I know I don't love yellow, but who doesn't love sunflowers at this time of the year? So this beautiful sunflower with this honeycomb pattern I thought would look absolutely wonderful. And I have 2 more to share with you. I saw this one with the cats, and I thought it was really quite cute. And I think my original intention had been to match it with the pink polka dots, because that does look kind of fun. A little bit of, you know, brightness in there. But this popped it so much better. And this is an orange. It's coming out a little bit maybe on the red side, but it is a beautiful orange. And with those cats, who doesn't love an orange cat? I love orange cats. And then just before I was about to leave, Greg pointed out this pattern here. He thought this was a lot of fun. And I said, well, would you like me to make you one? And then I grabbed this buffalo check, and he really loved it. So this will be the outside and this will be the inside for probably 2 of them, and maybe I'll do an outside inside for the other one. So lots of bunny bags in my future with farmhouse, kitties, and orange. And then we have unicorns and polka dots, because I don't think you can go wrong with that. And then more polka dots. Actually, I mixed that up. What did I do? Oh, this is unicorns and pink polka dots. These polka dots with this purple. And then we have flowers in the sunshine. And finally, the rainbows and the turquoise. So that was my little fabric shop from Michael's yesterday, and as I said, I wanted to share these with you before I cut them up. So these little rectangles of fabric open up to these, and you know what? I think I need to turn the iron on because these have been folded up for quite some time. Fun bunnies are in my future. Along with that fabric, I purchased some hair ties, and you'll see what those were about in a few minutes. And I also purchased some lovely pom-poms. So a few things came into the house this week, but for the most part, other than a few leftovers here, it was used up straight away. And what a strange feeling that is, bringing something in, using it straight away rather than putting it in the stash. And yes, I probably could have used my stash, but I had seen some really cute fabrics at Michael's and I wanted to use those. So without much further ado, let's move from brown paper packages and go into my favorite things. So you just saw all of the fabrics that I shared uncut, and not a very fancy project bag. It's just one of the local grocery stores. I started practicing making some little bunnies, and these bunnies are to put chocolate in for Easter, and I wanted to make some as gifts. And I've already given quite a few of my bunnies away, but I have kept a few back. Now, just to practice, I took some fabrics that I had used for previous projects. I had made some masks, so I made this little bunny with some striped fabric. I had made a couple masks out of this one, and some lovely printed fabric on the inside, and a cute little bunny tail. Now I have just safety pinned the bunny tails in place. I had originally sewn some buttons on the front, but I decided that I kind of liked it with just the tail. So this one, these were all my practice ones. I really like this one. This one's going to go to Isaac, and this is fabric that I had in stash, and then musical notes inside, and a beautiful pink bunny tail. And I absolutely love these pastel pom-poms, and it was fun figuring out which one I liked best. So I also made this one for Nathaniel using some fabrics that I had been into, a little orange bunny tail. But I am super, super excited to share with you the bunnies I made from the fabrics I bought at Michael's. Now, this is a pattern that I found on YouTube, and I will link it at the very end. So at the very end, I'll put a little card so that if you would like to make your own bunnies, if you've got some fabric stash or some leftovers you'd like to get to, please feel free to click on that link. And it was a lot of fun. And each of the fabrics, I needed 2 of each to make one bunny, so a contrast and a main color. And each of those measured out to 6 inches by 18 inches. So this one I probably would have liked to have done vertical stripes, and as you can tell, I did not do a very good job matching up. I was just playing at that point. But that was the way my fabric, I had enough fabric to do vertical stripes rather than horizontal, but I still think it looks quite cute. So the lovely bunnies that I made, I have made 2 for Nathaniel for Easter, and I have to share with you what it looks like, I guess, with chocolate in it, but I'll do that right at the end. Anyway, this is a polka dot bunny with the turquoise inside for Nathaniel, and I decided to play around a little bit and mixed and matched slightly. I had bought this rainbow fabric to go with this turquoise, and I had bought this fabric here to go with this purple. So here is a bunny for Nathaniel with the turquoise, and I've made a bunny for Isaac with the purple. So they'll both get a bunny that they can tell, and Nathaniel's will be turquoise and Isaac's will be purple. So they both have a polka dot bunny with their color inside. And then I made, again, another turquoise with the rainbow inside for Nathaniel and a beautiful bright pink bunny tail. And for Isaac, I used, he loves purple, he likes rainbows, and oh my goodness, the tail that goes on this one is this gorgeous lavender, and I love how it looks with the purple. So this one is for Isaac. So 2 for Isaac, 2 for Nathaniel. I did have to make one for me, and mine is a fun unicorn print with a little pink tail on the back. The purple looked nice too, but I decided to do the pink. Now with each of the fabrics that I bought, I was able to make 3 bunnies. And so I bought 12 fabrics, 6 pairings. I did mix and match the turquoise, the purple, the rainbow, and the polka dots, which was nice. But I made 3 of these unicorns, and the other 2 unicorns have been gifted already. I gave one to the little girl who lives next door, and I have sent one off as a little treat in the mail. So my unicorn. And then Greg loves cats, so I had to use this orange on the inside and then this fun cat pattern with an orange tail on the outside. And as we were looking at fabrics, Greg was with me. He was really drawn to this fabric, and when I held it up with the buffalo check, he actually insisted that yes, I should make that. So I have one here for Greg, and then I have gifted the other 2 already. But isn't that fun with the vintage cars? And it has a cute little orange tail, and the orange sort of plays off of the flowers there. The green was another color. I think I gave the one with the green to my neighbor. In the YouTube video that shows you how to make these, she does just suggest pinning the little tails in. Now I did go to the dollar store to try and find pom-poms, and I ended up having to go to Michael's because they only had kits with pom-poms, and I didn't want all the other stuff with it. So I did find, and the nice thing about going to Michael's is they had a lot more variety, so I was able to then choose that. A little more pricey though. I was hoping to buy some hair elastics that were thicker and sort of like that terry cloth, thick hair elastic like she shows, but I couldn't find any in the dollar store, but I did find these, and I liked how they were bright and colorful. So I think I will, using this lovely little cat, and we have our mini eggs. You just put a few little mini eggs in your bunny, and I like the orange and yellow one. You put your hairband across the top like this, and then you pull the ears. So he's now weighted down with yummy, yummy chocolate. And I could have, as I said, put a button there, but I didn't. But oh, that cute little bunny tail. And he's filled with chocolate. So I will have to make sure that Scouty beside me here does not get a hold of these bunnies and eat the chocolate inside. But oh, I think so adorable. And such a fun make this week. So there may have been a bit of a bunny population explosion in this house. However, most of these little bunnies have been gifted now, and the ones that I have left beside me will be used for a little Easter Sunday treat. And then these ones I've got as my test ones. I'll probably just pop some. I think I was going to keep this one for myself. I like with the fabric inside with the words, and just such a fun gardening motif with all the seeds. So that one I will keep. And then I've got a couple extra. Oh, I was going to give this one to Isaac. So the boys will each have 3, and this one to Nathaniel. And that left me with, oh, there we are. I had done this seed with the flowers inside. So I have 2 extras in case I need a gift. So, and I do have someone that I will probably give these to. So 2 extras, and then lots of little bunnies that not only can we use this year, we can put away and use again next year. I am thinking probably though, I will put little chocolates, not directly in like I did with this one, but in like a Ziploc, so it keeps them contained so it doesn't get chocolate all over the fabric of my little bunnies. Anyway, that is something that I worked on this week, and yes, there was a bunny population explosion, and I am perfectly okay with that. I did mention each of the pairings made 3 bunnies, so I had 6, so I made 18 bunnies. 7 of them were put in the mail yesterday. 3 of them were gifted to one neighbor yesterday, and 1 was gifted a couple of nights ago to another neighbor. And these are all the bunnies that I have left. So Hare today, well, these will stay, but the other ones, gone yesterday, not even tomorrow. But we like that Hare today, gone tomorrow, don't we? Along with our good hair day. The rest of the couch is filled with knitting. And first off, let me share with you a release that will be happening this weekend. Now, I finished this a little while back, and I've even worn this sweater a couple of times. This is the Arconia sweater, and it's a pattern by Amy Loudon, who is Tailoress Studios, and also the dyer with her sister of Dandelion and Dogwood yarns. And so Amy and Jen make beautiful yarns, and Amy designs wonderful patterns. This is the Arconia sweater. It's a very simple sweater, and I was able to test knit it. I think I started it in January, finished it in, I think, just before Valentine's Day, and Amy put on Instagram that this will be released this weekend. So if you're looking for a fun, simple sweater to knit, I highly recommend the Arconia. And for my sweater, I used some lovely La Bien-Aimée Cory confetti. So it's got all those fun pops of neon. And this is the gray bow colorway, which is perfect for today's weather. And it is a very warm, very snuggly sweater. I did think about wearing it today, but I thought I'd probably be a little bit too warm while I was podcasting. This is perfect though when I am out and about on a chilly winter or spring or fall day in the Vancouver area. But oh, I absolutely love this sweater. And I do have my Made by Tracy here. And as I love to do on my sweaters, I have popped this bright pink label down in the bottom left-hand corner. So a wonderful pattern, and I thought I would pull it out just to share again with you because I know that Amy was or is planning to release the Arconia sweater pattern this weekend. So that'll be available on Ravelry, and I'm not sure where else. But you can also see the pattern on Instagram. And as I mentioned, Amy is Tailoress Studios. So that is something I wanted to share again. That was something I had knit a while back. A little bit of mystery chatter. I have pulled Nancy Drew out of, she's got a little bit of fur on her, out of the drawer that has all of my lovely project bags. I love using my Nancy Drew project bag because it means that there is a mystery afoot. And at this point, I will tell you, Nancy is completely empty, and she is looking forward to having some yarn chosen and some needles popped in here and becoming my little confidant for a little while. And a while back, Helen Stewart, who is Curious Handmade, sent out a little newsletter saying that this year the focus will be on the Sock Society. It's now been 2 years since we've had a Sock Society, and I have seen the first pattern. I have chosen my yarn color, but I haven't quite chosen my yarn. But I've got one in mind, and I'm very excited to do some pawing through my stash to find it, and I think it will be a really nice choice. But that means if I'm starting to test knit the Sock Society Pattern 1, that very soon you'll be hearing a little bit more news about the Curious Handmade Sock Society. So Nancy is ready. I am ready, and as I said, I'm going to be choosing out some yarn this weekend, and I am going to be casting on, and the next time you see Nancy, I will not be able to share Nancy's secrets. So take a look. Oh, there are some things in here. Just some stitch markers, which are always good to keep in the bottom of a project bag. So mystery afoot. Very excited about that. Now, let's stay on the line of test knits. And in this gorgeous bag made for me by my friend Lorraine, it's got a little bit of mohair on the side. If it's not mohair, it's dog hair or cat hair. Fluff, lots and lots of fluff. This beautiful unicorn bag was made for me by my friend Lorraine, and it is housing a fun mystery project. And I am going to share my yarns. Now I'm a little more than halfway done, and oh, I am loving this pattern. For this pattern, I'm using some Sherry Iris yarn, and this one is called A Quilt to Dream Under, and it was a sock set. And it was these two lovely, lovely yarns together. So this soft pink along with this yellow, green, pink, very springy skein of yarn, and I better not twist it up. I'm wrapping the yarn up. I can't twist it up too much or the project will come up and we cannot have that. You might like it, but I can't share at this point. Hopefully soon. Anyway, these yarns are knitting up beautifully and I am absolutely in love with how this project looks so far. And I think when it is released, oh, it's wonderful. Anyway, that is living in my lovely little unicorn bag. And as I mentioned, this was a gift from my friend Lorraine. And these yarns were also a lovely gift. And the pattern that I'm knitting is a wonderful and lovely friend. So all three of these are kind of connected to, not kind of, they are connected to when I was in London this past November. And I'm looking forward to sharing a little bit more detail about those connections when the pattern is released. But until then, mysteries, Nancy, unicorns. Oh, I love test knitting time. The final project that I'm going to share with you is not a secret. And it's definitely not a secret that it took me a lot longer than it should have. Now, I believe I cast this on Valentine's Day. And the yarn that I used for this project is this lovely Nora George yarns. And this is Cloud Decay in the Sweet Pea colorway. And Cloud Decay is 70% alpaca, 10%, 20% silk, and 10% cashmere. And oh, it is scrumptious. So scrumptious. And oh, squishy, squishy. I have finally finished my Morticia sweater and I'm happy with it. So last week it was finished, but I just didn't like how the neckline was sitting and how the waistband had been sitting. So I had redone the waistband to share last week on the podcast. And then as soon as I finished editing, I ripped out that neckline and I re-knit the neckline. So if you want to see what it looked like, you will have to go back. If you want to see what the neckline looked like, you'll have to go back to last week's podcast and take a quick peek. And if you want to see what the hem looked like, you'll need to go back probably a week before that to see it just sort of, I kept calling it bulging. It just lifted funny it had a funny ridge and I just didn't like how it was sitting. So now my neckline has been re-knit. It lies a lot flatter. It's not doing weird little bulges and rolls around my neck or my waist because I have enough bulges and rolls there as it is. I don't need to add my own manufactured ones. That's what these are for. Naughty Tracy. Anyway, I have now put my Made by Tracy in the navy here, and in the bottom left-hand corner, I have popped, as per popular suggestion, the light pink lamb there, and then it says right here, Made by Tracy. So I love these grain deep labels for just adding that little bit extra. And yes, I have that one down there. I need this mainly so that I know which is the back of my sweater and which is the front without having to find the shoulders. The other day, Greg and I went out. I took my jacket off. I realized I was wearing my shirt inside out. we were drinking coffee at a little snack place, and I just looked and thought, how can I not dress myself in the morning and realize, you know what, I left it that way the rest of the day because, you know, who cares? Anyway, this is my beautiful Morticia sweater. This is a pattern by Andy Satterland. It has glorious sleeves, puffed sleeves, the puffiest. And oh, it's so soft. It has blocked out beautifully. Nathaniel had a cadet weekend, so he was away on the weekend. So I took over his bed. I did put this in, I wasn't 100% sure, but I did put this in the delicate cycle in the washing machine on a low spin, and then I laid it out to dry on Nathaniel's bed, and you know what? It came out beautifully. I did the same with my Arconia sweater too, just a delicate cycle. I just find sweaters are a little bit more difficult to block. In my old house, I had a nice utility sink that was perfect for soaking my knits in. Here, it's either the bathroom sink or the kitchen sink, and oftentimes I will put, you know, it's great for socks, but I'm just a little bit more leery about bigger things like sweaters and blankets. So, delicate cycle, I'm quite pleased with how it all blocked out. And oh, look at how that yarn has knit up. Now for the most part, the top part I did with one skein. In the middle, I was alternating skeins. And until I got to near the bottom where during the ribbing, I just used one skein. I was so happy that each of the sleeves took one skein of yarn with just the tiniest bit left, like hardly any left, but oh, it was nice not having to alternate, especially with these mesh sleeves. I will put this on in the epilogue and share it on then, but oh, I'm so thrilled with this. And this is going to be a sweater that I wear on Easter. So very excited to do that, although I still have to take photographs as well. Anyway, I was mentioning this is a pattern by Andy Satterland. Unfortunately, Andy's patterns are no longer available. It was part of the Spooky collection, so if in 2019 you purchased it, this would be in the Spooky collection. It is, oh, such a fun knit. And I think I would like to knit another one in a dark gray, maybe in the fall. But for now, I am very excited to enjoy my springy pink Morticia now. It's now time for Bits and Bobs, and this is my segment where I talk about anything and everything, not necessarily knitting related. I did mention that this past weekend Nathaniel did a cadet weekend, so he is in Sea Cadets in Canada and is really enjoying it. And they had a weekend away. They weren't that far. They were actually just on the island. I can see the base from our house, so he can walk there, which is really great. And he had a really good weekend, and although he was very tired, he didn't get much sleep. So they wake them up for watch and different things. And of course, you've got a bunch of kids all there that they were tired on Sunday when they got back home. Isaac, today is his last day at Starbucks, so no more mark out for us. Mark out was every week they get either a pound of coffee, a box of tea, or a box of the instant coffees. So no more mark out, which is fine because those cupboards behind me are filled with coffee, and I'm not much of a coffee drinker. The boys are. I like the tea, so he did get me some tea bags as well. But today is his last day at Starbucks because next week he starts a new job and he will be working at a local pool lifeguarding and teaching swimming. So all of his qualifications are now up to date. He's got his instructors up to date. He's got his first aid up to date. He did do the lifeguarding recert last year, so he is good to go, and he will start training late next week. And he's also got something else in the works, but I'll have to find out what I'm allowed to share about that as well. But it is along the lines of what he graduated with, and so he will be doing maybe some singing and dancing in his future. But at this point, that's all I can share about that. Greg is super busy these days. He has gotten settled back home after his quick trip to Ontario and is back busy again. And I'm hoping in the next little while that Greg and I can do some adventures like we did a couple of weeks ago when we went to Garry Point Park. Greg has a new vehicle, and if you look back in October, you may have a hint of what that is. And as we are getting into spring and Greg has grown a little bit more confident on this new vehicle, I might be going for some rides, and I will take you along with us, but still a little bit in the future. Trying to think if there's anything else that I can think of. I've been sewing and sewing for a good part of this week. I very much enjoyed making these bunny bags. Like I said, it was so fun to actually buy the fabrics and use them straight away, and use some leftovers of some yarn, of some fabrics that I had made some masks with when we were still very much under the mask mandate. And I would wear I would wear this one against my face, because I found that the surgical masks, I would get mask me, and I couldn't stand the feel of the surgical mask. So I would wear a cloth mask, bunny, against my face, and then I'd put the surgical mask on top. So, but that was a while back, but it is nice to repurpose some of the fabric that I had as scraps in my stash and make some cute little rabbits. I absolutely love to sew, and I definitely don't do it as often as I should. But I also know why I don't do it as often as I should. I have a beautiful antique chair that is by my sewing machine. But my problem is, when I start sewing, I don't know when to stop. And it'll be 1 in the morning, and I'll be just sewing along, and I'll be, bouncing back and forth from the ironing board to the sewing machine. And then, of course, you get to the point where you start sewing wrong sides together instead of right sides together, and then you have to pick things apart because you start making mistakes. But my problem is, I then stand up when I finally say, okay, I guess I should go to bed now, and I can barely move, because when I sit down to sew, like I said, I just don't know when to quit. So I had this week a night where I had to put rub the Voltaren on the back of my neck and on my back. I had to take the Aleve. I do love to sew, but as I said, I just have no limits. I will say, however, that island is fabulous for cutting fabric. So much better than my previous setup in Toronto, which was an island as well, but it wasn't. My sewing machine was on the 3rd floor, so if I needed to do stuff, I'd have to go down to the 1st floor. Here, it's not quite as far, so it is a better setup for sewing. One thing I have been planning on doing is rearranging the loft a bit. I don't get to the sewing machine because when we moved in, I just sort of shoved a lot of my things there, my crafty things there, and it's a lot more difficult to get to yarns and fabrics and other things than it was in the old house. I have an idea of how I want to rearrange things. I just need to get up the gumption to do it. And then once I do, I think that my upstairs space will be, my crafting space will be a lot more user-friendly, easier to get into. Perhaps I will then also feel a little more comfortable sewing too. I think I may need to, I love the antique chair. It is comfortable to sit in for a little while, just not hours and hours and hours and hours at a time. But I do have some ideas, and hopefully I will get to those very soon. Anyway, I think that is all I have for Bits and Bobs this week. That and a ton of bunnies and chocolate, which will make everybody happy on Easter Sunday. I'm just editing the podcast right now and looked out the window. I could hear a bit of noise. And this is Logger here. And down this boom is Tug Away. And let's go back to Logger. Logger's struggling a little bit, and there are also these two guys that are on the boom, and I'm not sure what they were doing, whether they were straightening it, but they are just working away. And oh my goodness, Tug Away is coming up really, really fast. So I guess they are struggling with something on the boom. But these two guys on the back, like on the logs, just wow. I don't think you could pay me enough to do that. Anyway, the two tugboats are working away while it's raining. The waves are heading this way, so it is very likely that I might get wet. Anyway, that is a little bit of what is happening on the river right now. And I'll zoom out a little bit. I want to make sure that all of these logs don't get out of control. Anyway, I'm going to go back to editing, and there's a little bit of footage from the river. Greg and I are inside. The house is moving a little bit because they are creating waves. We're not sure what the problem is, but you can see the momentum that the logs have. The one tugboat is trying to stop the logs from progressing too much farther. And of course, it is a very long boom today, so we're not sure what they're doing, but it's amazing just seeing them sometimes jump off of the tugboats onto the logs, and then they're running down. Now they're both on their tugboats, and they've hooked up, and they're both pulling different directions, or at least the one is. And Logger's got a real wake on him right now. I don't know whether... It's called full throttle. Full throttle, yeah. But anyway, a nice warm spot inside. The door's in my way, and yeah, he's turning around there. Oh, there's a bunch of logs that have fallen off on the far end of the boom. So he's now actually just pushing them back to where the rest of the boom is. So I guess some got out of control, fell off, but looks like they've got things back in control. Tug Away is tugging away, and Logger has got the other logs back with the rest of these. Anyway, back to editing as we sit on the float house. Things are definitely back in order. For anyone who is new to the podcast, my podcast name is Knitting on the Float, and that is because I live on a float house on the Fraser River, and literally I have just stepped outside onto our deck, and this is our view because we are on the river when those tugboats were racing. The house does move, and I'm going to feel this in a few moments, so I might have to step back or it will get wet when the water comes through the slats. But anyway, that is, for anyone who's new, why I'm called Knitting on the Float. It is definitely not because I do color work. I'd like to do color work, but it's mainly the fact that I live in a float house community, and these are some of the other ones down the way. Anyway, this is Lager, Tugaways in the distance, and again, let's get back to editing. Thank you so much for joining me on Knitting on the Float this week. I hope that you've had a chance to sit down, relax, work on that project of choice while we have visited today, and maybe you've been inspired to make your own bunnies. I did mention I will put the link to this video at the end of the podcast, so if you're interested in creating your own bunny brigade, feel free to click that link at the end. And this weekend, in addition to enjoying some of that yummy, yummy chocolate, I am looking forward to a new cast on, and also I'm hoping to finish off this mystery knit. Easter was kind of the deadline I gave myself. Anyway, all these exciting things coming in the weeks ahead. Hopefully I will be able to share my yarn next week. But in the meantime, I am wishing you a wonderful day, evening. If you celebrate Easter, happy Easter. And I look forward to sitting down with you next week and sharing all the fun crafting that I've gotten up to. Have I decided on a sweater pattern yet for my next one? No, but there's always next week. Have the most wonderful week ahead, and I will see you then. Bye. And now I get to share with you my Morticia. And oh, look at these amazing, amazing sleeves. And the length is just perfect. Balloons to right here, and then a nice long cuff. And I'm actually really quite pleased. I could pull up to there if I need to, but it fits nicely around the wrists. And Anne of Green Gables would be so jealous because these are the puffiest of sleeves. And moving back, so I'm very glad I redid the hemline because it just had this weird bulge here that I just didn't like how the fabric was laying, and the same thing was happening on the neck here too. So now it is laying quite flat. Where I did like the neckline before, I just didn't like that there was that little ridge, and it was sort of folding over in the back again a little bit as well. So anyway, this is my wonderful Morticia pattern by Andy Satterland, and I adore how it has turned out. Oh, these sleeves are perfect for, I think, spring. It's a wonderful, wonderful sweater, and this color is great. The light's not getting it as good as it could, but you've seen it on the couch. Anyway, my wonderful Morticia, and I am so happy that I've finally been able to share this as a finished object.